Aloha, welcome to the anatomy of the soul and how to read the fine print. Today is going to be amazing. I put together an incredible document that you'll be receiving later. So just like a little overview of what we'll do today is I'm going to go through the document and then we're going to do some activities to actually work through the energy of each aspect of the soul and how it integrates. And a big piece of this will be, everyone talks about the matrix, but what about the divine matrix? And so I'm going to be sharing the anatomy and architecture of the divine matrix and how the soul comes into form and creates itself with all the versions that are here and present now. So we in ourselves are the divine matrix. Before we begin, I want to do a little lymph exercise. And the reason why is because the exercises in the end will probably be quite emotional. And the lymphatic system is the manifestation of the emotional body on the physical plane. Your lymph nodes are like little emotional processing centers. So if you ever have inflamed lymph nodes, you can actually just like touch them and say, show me what I'm not feeling. Show me what I need to feel. And you'll be surprised how quickly overwhelmed you are by the emotion that's present there. So I'm going to teach you what's called the Big Six. You can look it up on YouTube. There's plenty of visuals that people do for this. So essentially what we're going to do is start with your hands sort of like this over and under the clavicle, and you're just going to rub. Just gonna rub, getting all that lymph moving. These are the primary places where your lymph needs to begin to move. And then you're gonna tap. And then you're just gonna cup and circle. And the other side. Rubbing across the clavicles. Tapping. And cupping and rotating. Right underneath your jaw, just rubbing up behind, a little bit behind the ear. Tapping. And then rotating. And the other side. Tapping. And rotating. Then, right here at your solar plexus, where your ribs meet, you're going to put your hands like this. Just go up and down. Tapping. And circles. Oh. Now, right at the groin, you're going to rub on either side, kind of where the creases of your legs are when you sit down. And tapping. And circles. Woo. And then you're going to go behind your knees, up and down. That's accessible for you. Tapping. And circles. Now this part you have to stand up for. And what you're going to do is just sort of shake your body out by jumping on the balls of your feet. Make sure your shoulders are coming up. Just shaking everything out. You're pumping your calves, which is the second heart. Pumps all your fluids back up to the heart. You're just really doing that. All right. How'd that feel? You can unmute yourself if you want to say something.
Dude, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember my biology teacher was like, the lymph node, the lymph system, you have to like move. And I felt like it was like a threat, but now I feel, well, it feels good. It feels delicious.
Amazing. Yeah, that as a daily practice will completely change your emotional body, because that like euphoria that you feel is actually the sensation of having physically processed emotional data that's stuck in your body, and you're moving that fluid through your body. One more entering. Yeah. So good, says Haley. Aloha, Leslie. We're just getting started. You can go back for the recording for the exercise we just did. Refresh, Raleigh. Yes, 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 yes. All right. Let's just begin. Just going to drop us in for today's session. Just taking a few deep, slow inhales and exhales, as if you could breathe through the bottoms of your feet. Breathing down into the earth. Inhaling to the center of the earth. Exhaling. Inhaling up from the center of the earth all the way through to the top of your head. Exhaling all the way to source, all that is, life, universe, whatever you want to call it. Exhaling all the way to meet this space, and then inhaling that energy all the way down through to the bottoms of your feet. Exhaling it all the way down to the center of the earth. Inhaling the energies of the earth all the way through to the top of your head. Exhaling all the way to source. Inhaling unconditional love into every cell of your body, all the way down to your feet. Exhaling all the way to the earth, center of the planet. Inhaling the energies of the earth all the way to the top of your head, grounding any excess energy in your nervous system. Exhaling all the way to source, however you perceive that. Inhaling unconditional love into every cell of your body and grounding it into the center of the earth. Just returning to your heart. You can place your right hand over your heart, your left hand over your lower belly, and just feel your body grounded and elevated simultaneously. Levitating inside your body between Source and Mother Earth. And today we're going to be exploring all the various types of soul family and discussing how the soul actually animates itself. And is it, what kind of soul family are you aware of so far? You can put it in the chat. Just type it in the chat. What are the different types? I mean, everyone knows soulmates. Current biological family, totally. Nature, trees. Ooh, yes, I love that. Animals, our companion animals. Soulmates, friends, soul bros and sisters that I feel like I've known for ages. Yes. Community. She's over in the Sangha already. Okay. Kirsten. That's the evolution, right? We're moving to the Sangha. Lifelong friends. OFC, Twin Flames. Not sure what OFC is. If you want to explain that, I'd love to know. Star family, Pleiadian brothers and sisters, galactic beings, family, kindred spirits. Oh, of course. Yes, OFC, of course. Beautiful. So I'm just going to quickly go over what I have. Ooh, not like that. I'm not. What is going on? It's like zooming instead of turning pages. Okay. Let's see here. It's so weird. 1 second. Able to see. Got it. Okay, so let's just begin with the soul. What is the soul? Well, the soul is two things. So there's the source of universal life, which you can think of it as the sun. So you have the sun, which is our soul altogether. And then there are sequences of universal life that come out of this unified soul. So what you probably think of as yourself is the sequence of universal life that you are. The idea that everyone is that these sequences are like representations of that unified source of universal life. So let's see if I can actually just share my screen here. That would be ideal. Moment. Desktop. Okay. See if you can see the screen. Thumbs up, you can see the screen? Awesome. All right, so this is a little document. So the source of universal life is that right there, that image of just the light of all that is. Another image that I like to share is like those fiber optic lights that have the one light with all the little fibers coming out of them. That's how it was originally shown to me as a kid. And I was like, oh my God, of course. So the divine matrix is this toroidal field. And each of us are the center point of our own divine matrix, because the interesting thing about how reality is actually formulated is that the only consciousness that exists is the one that you're currently logged into right now. So even though I'm the one that's sharing it, where you're logged into is the only consciousness that is actually quote unquote real. We're all having our own experience of it from these different perspectives because time is not linear. And so your experience is the only thing that's actually happening. That's why I often say you're the only one experiencing your reality. So why would you put up with anything that you don't want to experience, or be afraid of saying things or standing up for yourself, because like you're the only one, right? So the soul that is you comes into this body, and as it's entering physical form, right, down this toroidal field, as it's coming in, it's flushing out of the cells of your body all that's not in resonance with who you are. So your experience, and this is actually how I do readings too. I stopped doing readings when past, present, future, when I realized what was happening, because the toroidal field is how everything is manifested. And I remember in high school recognizing that people were just energies. And I was like, oh, like every time I'm complete with a particular energy, like they leave my life or they stop coming around me. When I came out in high school, literally the divine matrix reprogrammed itself instantaneously, because all the people that hated me in high school, that were shoving me in lockers, suddenly wanted to be my best friend. And it had nothing to do with other people suddenly changing. It was that the version of reality that I was manifesting through my divine matrix had completely shifted, because I was owning an aspect of my own integrity. So like the outer world must reflect this, right? So there's many ways in which this happens. People, circumstances, diseases, emotions, all of these things are a physical or experiential thing that allows us to experience our own energetic alignment, right? And it's not always that what's outside of us is always a reflection of us, because oftentimes life will create this expression of what you've completed recently on the outside, so that you can see it and interact with it from a more distant perspective versus it being you internally. And then we have the ego mind, or the ego matrix. So the same formulation of how reality is formed, right? So you have this like toroidal field with all these different layers of how I interact with all of these different, people that are a part of my reality. We'll just keep it to people to make it simple. The divine matrix and the ego matrix, or ego mind, are creating in the same field. There's only one field. It's just a way of perceiving what is actually happening. And one layer, the divine matrix, is the recognition that there is only one light manifested in all things. And I've had this experience multiple times throughout my whole life, where the veil is lifted and I literally cannot tell the difference between the people over there and here inside this body. Like, it's all one energy. And if you attended the Anatomy of Thriving, I believe, there was a whole activation that we did where in the new universe, we all are taking up the full space of what is here with our consciousness, and it doesn't actually take away from anyone else, meaning that like me fully embodying myself does not detract from anyone else doing that, because we are all it. Everyone is everyone. And so what's interesting is, as we, if we were all in person right now, if we were interacting, each of the people in the room would have a different sense. You would have a different relationship to them, right? And that's just on like a basic, social level, right? But your ego mind would also be creating its own based on all the past preferences and experiences and all these things, right? So there's going to be a track that's telling you how the people around you are, whether they're safe, whether they're not safe, whether you are interested in connecting with them. And that layer is not wrong, right? So it's not like divine is better than ego, because the ego is actually serving the purpose of giving us an experience of separation. Nowhere else is it possible to even experience separation except for here. So many on the spiritual path are trying to resolve separation, when actually separation is what is to be celebrated, and the celebration resolves it. Because when you're ascending, you're transmuting your ego into the light. But then in the descension process, you're bringing all of your light, fully illuminating the ego. And so you get to play and have the most grand like personality, and like whatever you want to be true is true because you're deciding. And there's a point where previously the things that you thought were or egoic in the way that you're interacting with life are actually the most divine things because you're just consciously choosing. Whereas before, sometimes, you know, we can have this like inflated sense of ego, but it's coming from a protection, right? We're trying to protect the inferiority. But when you collapse inferiority and superiority, then you can actually be in that space where you can think as highly of yourself as you want, and it doesn't actually matter because it's not from a place of trying to be, it's from a place of being. Just letting all of that settle. And this is about learning how to travel properly. Because when you're trying to move your life, transform your life by getting from point A to point B, and it's in a horizontal plane, you're going to just be creating more time for yourself to experience a lack. Versus, let's go all the way back here. So this is how we actually transform. You're starting out at this like bottom toroidal field here, right? And there's all these potentials above it. When you are receiving the transformations, the initiations within the toroidal field that you're in now without changing anything, right? And this is going to go into a whole other thing, which is about magnetic time. Time has moved from electricity into magnetism, meaning effort into magnetics, right? So this divine matrix has been amplified, meaning the magnetics of whatever you're experiencing in your reality, whatever things you're pulling towards yourself, whether it feels overwhelming or blissful or, you know, a real struggle, it's the magnetics that you are exuding, right? And so you're pulling in these experiences that are an exact match to what you need in order to integrate to then move to the next creation. And I noticed this when I've moved like, I don't know, 13 times internationally across the US in like 10 years. And I would always notice the same characters every single time. Like it was like, oh, you're a Steven, or you know, you're a Brian. Like it's like the same, I would manifest the exact same people just in different forms. And sometimes they would be exact if I didn't learn the lesson from the previous character. Because whatever you need to learn inside of yourself is going to be recreated again and again and again until you complete it, and then you can remanifest whatever your reality is. So we're no longer changing things externally, we're changing things internally and allowing life to reshape itself. So there is and there isn't control. And this is actually the design of divine will and free will, right? Because you get to choose how fast the journey goes. And that's not better than a slower, quote unquote, slower journey, right? It's just whatever your specific sequence of universal life desires. And the different characters that we experience are how we speed up or slow down. Can you also, you can see see me in the chat, right? Or not in the chat, in the video. You can see me on video. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. Okay, so the soul family is like this like spectrum, right? And you can think of like all the colors of the human spectrum, the human rainbow, and there's, you know, the soul family is lovers and exes and soulmates and mentors and karmic relationships and twin flames or mirror souls, and then soul tribe. And there are others as well that we'll go over. But so you can think about all of the various characters in your life, at least most of them, lie along this spectrum. And the soulmate is the most common one, right? And a soulmate, if you can think of like your particular frequency is green, and then your soulmate, which can be, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. A soulmate can be an animal, it can be you know, your best friend, people that sort of stay with you for a long period of time, and there's not too many like hiccups in your relationship. There may be like certain things that come up, but it's like pretty rare. It's like that everything is just so effortless, you know? So they're going to have a frequency that is very close to you. The catalyst. So I don't really like the term karma. I don't believe in it. Karma is basically just a way that we have, the ego mind has distorted the divine matrix in order to perpetuate itself while looking to advance you by working on your karma. It doesn't actually work. The catalyst can be positive or negative. You know, I've been like walking in New York, and then a lady pops by and she gave me all this like psychic information that was like exactly what I needed at that moment in my life. I was like in my early 20s. That was a catalyst. Someone who just like pops in real quick with like a quick burst of information that helps you move in a new direction. It could be someone that offered you a new job or cheated on you. It could be someone like that, right? So those relationships that are really tumultuous and transformative, that kind of are constantly grinding your gears, those are catalyst relationships. And catalysts can be really, really quick if you're willing to learn the lesson. My last catalyst lasted like 2 years, and whoo, girl, it was a lot. But it is about the transformation that your soul is seeking, and you can do it slowly or quickly. And for whatever reason, by design, I've always chose the fast way. So catalysts are, you know, when we have the ego mind, right? It's like, oh, that was a negative karmic relationship or a positive karmic relationship. It's just a catalyst. And when you remove your mind out of the way that's saying it should be this way, or I don't like this, or I do like that, it's just noticing. So as we begin to cover all of these things, you'll notice that everything is serving your journey in a particular way. And so it's about receiving the value and the purpose of each aspect of the soul family. There's none that are more favorable than the other. It's just about, you're the creator of your reality, and the versions of you that you are experiencing outside of yourself are there on purpose every single time. And when you understand or understand why they are there, you can enjoy the connections and the relationships without necessarily being attached to them in a particular way, that's not helpful. However, with the soulmate, you're meant to be incredibly attached to them because you're going to more resonate at the emotional body and down. So it's more of like a physical plane connection that allows you to transmute the emotional body as the soulmate relationship completes. And the soulmate is never meant to stay with you for your entire journey. And that doesn't mean this lifetime, it means your entire soul's journey. So you could have a soulmate that lasts through your lifetime, but your manifestation of this, it may not always be that way, right? So, and that's not better or less. So then you have catalysts and soulmates. So this is actually more my ex, 2 years, soulmate catalyst relationship. And these are the ones that like cheat on you, or everything's good, and then suddenly it's like, you know, what do they call it? Jekyll and Hyde or something. So it's like they switch, right? There's some sort of thing, or it's like a beautiful relationship, but then there are all these like nasty like hooks or things that happen maybe on a daily basis, and they exhibit that soulmate energy. And the soulmate energy is you like fully, you recognize your energy in them, right? Because there's only one energy manifested. So soulmates and you are really close in vibration, so in your specific part of the human rainbow. And so you recognize yourself in the other, and that's what allows you to attach them, because you're so close, right? And it's comfortable, right? They're kind of the ones holding your hands along your journey. And you'll have many soulmates along in your life. And when you start to meet catalyst soulmates, it tends to be the beginning of the end of soulmates, because eventually along your soul's path, their soulmate energy will be unattractive. Not because they're less than, but because your frequency becomes so fine-tuned that even it's like that band gets smaller and smaller and smaller of what's comfortable as far as like intimate relationships. Then there's the twin flame. And there's all sorts of information on twin flames out there. But the twin flame is the exact same frequency. Imagine the exact same soul inside two bodies, because the soul, like, where is your soul? What is your soul? Can you name its shape, its color, its flavor? Like the soul is just energy, and the soul is not contained inside your body. Your body is contained inside of your soul. And it can manifest simultaneously in the same lifetime. And the purpose of this, while there's a very exciting, you know, internet mimetic sort of culture around this term, it's not something that you actually want. You do not want a twin flame, because to want a twin is impossible. Your twin flame is you. To want yourself is impossible. You are yourself. And so what ends up happening is when you meet the other self or the other body, is there's a soul recognition that happens after some time, where it's a biofeedback loop through two bodies and two egos with one soul. And what ends up happening is the ego mind begins to break down, and there's obsession, rumination, destruction of your ego structure, because your mind can't understand how you are inside your body and also over there. And there's a lot of people that talk about twin flames that don't actually have one. And when you've experienced it, it's like a frequency and you're like, that's not what they're talking about. Like they're talking about maybe like a super high level soulmate, but there's no way it's a twin flame. And actually the desire for them dissolves away as you begin to notice that it's actually just you, baby. Like it's just you. And when you tune in then to yourself and you're just fully aligned within your own self, they'll show up or they'll be around you. And the process is you interacting directly with yourself. And so all of the different soul family aspects, depending on how close or how far away they are from you, create delays of reflection. So a soulmate will reflect things, pretty rapidly because they're close to your frequency and you're traveling together with them as a soul. And then you have catalysts who are going to be radically different from you. And so they are creating change in your energetic body by being radically different. The twin is an immediacy that is like beyond anything that you can comprehend with your mind. And the repetition of the experiences where, for example, I went to an event on another island with two friends, and I had never met her partner. And it's very rare for twins to like be together. But I saw her, and then when I met her partner, I was like, that's one soul. Like you could see the 50-foot tall being that was like 1 foot in either body. And I'm like, and I just say to her, I'm like, you realize like he's like a phantom, right? Like you're both the same being, but the energetics are running through you first. And she's like, yeah, I know. And I would watch like thought energy come down through the field and split through both of their minds and then be expressed like it was ridiculous, right? So it was very confirming for my own experiences with this. But the purpose of it is not romantic. The purpose of it is the most ridiculous fast pass to ascension that you could possibly ask for in the soul family. Like it is going to absolutely destroy your mind, and you have to master your energy in order to survive. Literally, it's like one of the worst things that you will ever experience. And also amazing because when you really get on the game of what's happening, it's showing you the energetics. And that's actually how this class got developed, was by meeting my own and having all of these experiences. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like not what people think it is. And it's not fun. So your immediate mirror is that frequency. And it allows you to tune into yourself and figure out what needs to be adjusted, because it's never about the other person. They don't actually exist. They're a projection of your mind. It's one soul in two bodies. So if you ever experience that, don't freak out and maybe call me and I can help you. But it causes irreversible and extremely accelerated awakening. And once it's activated, like there's no going back, which is as fun and not fun as it sounds. So there's a lot of information in there. Then there's these contractless relationships. And I came across these. I was asked by some friends to do a reading for their relationship. And I have this history of when I'm walking around, I'll see couples and I'll be like, oh, like I'll hear 6 months, like that's how much time they have left together. And these friends, I saw them for the first time together, and I just heard, oh, there's nothing there. Like, I don't know how long that's gonna last. There's nothing there. And then they asked me to do a reading, and what I realized, I was like, oh, there's nothing there. They don't have any contracts. And it's not twin flame because you can't have a contract with yourself either. But the contract list isn't sort of like a new way that the divine matrix is manifesting itself as we're quote unquote ascending, because it's sort of like a soulmate, right? But what's funny is once I told them what was happening, they were having these, I mean, they were always having these experiences, but then they understood why. Because with a contract, like let's say I have an agreement with you to overcome codependency. So we're going to have this thing between us where we're moving through codependency. In a contractless connection, there's nothing between us. We can still interact, we can still have a relationship, we can still connect, but there's no contractual energy between the two separate souls. And so they can't fight. I mean, they can get upset, but it's like this, they told me it's like this immediate thing where anytime their mind tries to push energy on the other person as if it's their fault for what they're doing, it immediately sends them internally. And so it's almost like a twin flame in that sense, which also occurs, but a little bit different. The contract list is just like this, you literally cannot blame the other person for anything because there's no contractual cording between the two souls. It's super fascinating. And it's the download that I got when I met these two people was that they were the first of this type to like enter the planet, which I thought was really interesting. So, and then you have Soul Tribe, and Soul Tribe are like people who you meet more towards the end, so to speak, of your spiritual path, who you're not going to really like hang out with them in the same way. Like people think Soul Tribe is like, oh, like it's not the Sangha, it's not like community. Soul Tribe are the people that have your back to like the umpteenth degree on your spiritual path. If you veer off that path energetically, they're repelled from you. And so it's this like they'll hold you to your journey. They'll have the advice, the mentorship. They can be almost like mentors a little bit, but they're the people that are designed to assist you in your process and to keep you on your path. And they're not necessarily people, they're not romantic relationships. They usually don't live near you, but it's like the people that you would call or connect with that are inspiring you on your spiritual path. And so they're going to the exact same location as you, but from a different angle. The twin is obviously going to the exact same path as you because it's the same soul. And soulmates cannot, as you get closer and closer to source, so to speak, your frequency is shifting so, and soulmates tend to have this like egoic quality the closer you are to the time when your contract with them is closing. See, then you have non-family characters, people, and this is talked about on the internet as NPCs or muggles, even worse. But people talk about this concept of like people who there's not a soul in there, and that's actually not what's happening. It's a mistranslation of the divine matrix design, because when you recognize a soulmate, it's you recognizing your own frequency within that character. So you're like, gosh, like, and then your ego mind is like giving you all the reasons, because that's what it's designed to do, is give you the reasons why things are happening. oh my God, I have so much resonance with this person. Like we've spent all these past lives together or whatever. And it's like, that's because you're recognizing your own self in them. Right. And so you know, you look in their eyes and it's like, you're looking at another person, right? But they're like, you recognize them, right? It's actually you recognizing yourself, because we're all one being manifested inside the one thing. But the characters in the one thing are all designed to hold more or less amounts of you yourself. And then the twin, when you're looking into their eyes, literally it I can't explain it, but you're like looking directly into yourself, and it's the weirdest thing ever, and your ego will hate it. So yeah, so these non-family characters are people that you have no similar resonance with. So it doesn't look like there's a soul in there because you're not seeing yourself. And they're not designed to like give you an experience. You don't have any contracts with them. They're not a positive or a negative charge. They're just neutral. So these could be people that are like, you know, at the grocery store, or, you know, they're like, people say backfill characters. I just like to say non-family characters because it feels a little more nice. Then there is the hidden twin. Now, when you manifested your life, you decided whether or not you would have all the various different types of characters, and a twin would be, you know, it's not necessary, nor is it more desirable, less desirable. It's just an experience. And do you want to go really, really fast? Do you want to take the scenic route? It's like up to your desire as a soul. And when you're moving, and the whole point of this is when you're moving at the pace of your soul, like there's no more desirable way of doing things. It's whatever the soul wants to experience in this life. So the hidden twin, and I realized this with a breathwork ceremony with my friend Shahrazad. And I got so deep into this breath work, and I realized that the breath is always the twin, because what is a twin flame? It's designed to mirror everywhere you have tension in your body is egoic. That's the ego. The tension in your body is ego. It's the mind gripping somewhere in the body. The mind triggering the brain to grip that particular part of tissue that the brain controls. So tension in the body is just where your ego has attached inside your physical form. And practices of relaxation are good for, like, you know, like meditation, are helpful of reducing that load. Well, the twin is showing you all those places where you're not embodied, and it can be very uncomfortable, because it's like everything that you fear is wrong with you on an egoic level is going to be like immediately mirrored back to your face. But the breath does the exact same thing. The breath is the undulating movements of expansion and contraction, and where you're not breathing is a place where you're not aligned with your soul. And so everyone has a true twin. I used to call it the true twin, the hidden twin. The truest twin flame is the breath. And when you have a practice of being in presence with whatever is in your body with the breath, you're going to transform your body and your consciousness. So the parts, you know, that's a love yoga, right? Because you're breathing into the tension, and there can be all the stories, the emotions, the experiences that are stuck. in the fascia, which is like your quantum subconscious, I guess you could say. And you have to breathe, and you can breathe into that tension and breathe it out, and you can feel the physiological shift. You're actually moving egoic patterns out of your body. So when you're, you know, for example, I've had a lot of stomach pain in the last week or so after I had some brain healing that was opening up suppressed memories, right? And so all this stuff from childhood that I didn't have access to, I suddenly had access to. And it was like the digestive system was having a hard time digesting that information, right? And so I would just like, oh God, it was so much. Breathing so slowly, expanding into the pain and exhaling it out, right? And so I was utilizing the hidden twin or the true twin flame to transmute my own field to activate more consciousness in my body and become more embodied as a soul, right? So your soul's integration can be viscerally felt based on how the quality of your breath moves through your physical form and your energetic body. And at some point, I'm going to do a class called Breathe the Universe, which will be not just breathing in your body, but breathing in all the layers of existence until you can, like, you're like, where's the breath not moving? Is it Saturn? You know, like expand your breath, right? So begin to open your mind of what's actually possible. Your breath is a very powerful tool, and it's actually like, forget the whole soul family. Like if you just focused on letting your breath be, it is you, your breath is you, but you're on the physical plane, your body is like, your body and spirit are like twin flames in that sense, right? You're like going the same place, but sometimes the body is going in a different direction, and that's where you get disintegrations and dis-ease or upsets to your system. And so you know, you've done interior design or any of the medical mysticism stuff, it's all about bringing the breath fully into the body. Your soul coming into physical form is what heals the body. And you'll forget, and you'll remember, and you'll forget, and you'll remember, because the times that you forget are just the moments when you're designed to remember in a new way. And so you'll have constant ahas until you cease to forget and you just consistently breathe. Yeah, so the recognizing your soul family, so there's all these various frequencies that are close or far away from you in various degrees. So you can look at that later. Oh yeah, just soul healing. Okay, so this is what I want right here. This is your soul's trajectory. So if you go back in your mind to the image of the sun with all the little elements coming off of it, the sequences of universal life. So your particular soul, which the soul doesn't even really exist, but that's a whole other thing. But your particular sequence of universal life has its own direct, most efficient path back to source. So you, your breath, your twin, all the same thing. When you really get into the true like twin journey, your breath is actually moving through both bodies, but that's on an etheric level. So you're going in this trajectory, right? And so you can see here the top on the right, the soul tribe will take the journey the same as you, but from a different angle. So they're going the same place. And that's why they can provide like mentorship or help along your path, and they'll have different perspectives because their journey is, it's like coming from a different angle, which is important because it's always good to have close but differing perspectives, and also to be discerning, because sometimes they'll tell you things and they're like, you know, sometimes a soul tribe can be pretty egoic in a different way, where they're like, because you only meet your soul tribe when you're like close, really close in to source. And so they're people who are really confident in their own journey, right? And you are in your own as well. But when you first start meeting them, you're like at the beginning stages of that soul confidence. And so they'll be like, this is the way it is. And you're like, oh my God, maybe it's that way. But it's designed, you're both designed to strengthen yourself. And this is where we get into individuated communion, where people are completely individuated with their own connection to source, and we're communing together. And this is the soul tribe, is where you begin to unplug from really deep layers of spiritual and energetic codependency, where you rely on others to tell you how to connect to source or what's the best way. And it becomes more and more irrelevant as you move forward. So soulmates, again, will like track and sprinkle throughout your journey. It's all you, baby. Okay, so let's exit out of this. All right. Does anyone have any questions right now? And yes, you'll get a copy of the PDF later. I'll email it to you with the replay. View. Yes. I'm just going to unmute you. You can
I
go
think
ahead.
Matthew was first. Actually, Matthew, do you want to go ahead? Okay, I'll just go ahead. Really interesting and helpful, Barrett. Thank you. I'm kind of embarrassed to say this because I'm usually more spiritually mature, but I'm feeling a lot of resistance right now about a lost connection. My dog passed away last weekend, and we had this like massive, intensive, probably many lifetimes connection, and I can still feel her, but I'm so resistant that she's not in the physical with me anymore. And there are also pretty huge changes happening in my family in general. This was just kind of the most major and grievous. So I'm struggling to find my balance with appreciating all these kinds of connections, but then, you know, one that you just don't want to lose, and you're really resistant about it. I know I have tools for dealing with it. I just can't think of what they are right now.
Yeah, I totally feel you with the animals and the yeah, I lost a dog when I was in high school, and his name was Duke, and I held him as he passed. And I've never felt more connected to, like, I mean, an animal, but it was like, it was so deep. So I feel for you as far as this connection with your dog, I believe. Yes, yeah, your dog. And I have seen him in other animals. It's really interesting. I'll be like, oh my God, that's Duke, you know? But what the resistance in processing the grief of that loss is actually you sensing and feeling the transmutation of your field from emotional body interfacing with reality to a heart-centered connection with all of life. And it's very painful to move through that transmutation process because it feels unending and it feels just like a loss that never will go away. Like it really feels like that. And but the beauty, one of the most beautiful things, and it was a different time, but a message that I got in my own transmutation from the emotional body into like a higher heart-centered connection with life, which is actually relatively recently, is the soul of that being said, find me in everything. Find me in the life that you are. Find me in the beauty that you witness in the world around you. Find me in your passion, your joy, you know, all of these things, right? So when you can take the deep emotional bonds, you're never going to want to let go of a soulmate because it literally feels like you're dying because you're letting go of a high level of your own soul's recognition in another materialization of life. You're letting go of that. But what it's actually transmuting into is the blossoming of your, it's literally the sensation of separation dying, where you, like, if you can actually, and this is a process, move that energy throughout all that you see, distribute the pain, but also the joy. Don't let it hold in one place, because you probably feel some like tightness in different parts of your body around that feeling. And that's actually where the cording is at. And the resistance to fully distributing it is a desire to continue connecting to something that doesn't exist on the physical plane anymore, but still exists. Like you still feel that connection because the connection is real and there. Yeah, so there's, you know, you have to go through, gosh, my friend posted on his stories about grief yesterday, which is such a theme right now. I feel like it's such a huge theme. You know, post eclipse, post auroras, like there's a lot of energy that has shifted and our lives are completely different now and they'll continue to change, you know. But this particular last couple months has been really powerful shifts and changes for us all. So grief is a process of completing and honoring it. And he was talking about how if you desire to experience loss and attachment, you'll have to move through like obsession, attachment, loss, like you'll have to like resolve all these things. Or there's like an assessment, an acknowledgement, like a celebration of sorts, like a full honoring, right? So we think of grief as like quote unquote negative emotions, but it's actually like celebrating how much life they brought us. And that's really important to like real thorough grieving, is like honoring all the beautiful things that they've brought to your life. And in that, I feel like that's how we begin to distribute our experience with these beings, with these soulmates in particular. And it can be difficult to lose a soulmate. And once that like stagnation in the energetic body is completed, you're going to feel like a different person. You're going to feel so good because you have completed the initiation that the soulmate was there to provide. And you know, oftentimes in human relationships with soulmates, they can be pretty toxic, but not between each other, but like this, you begin to lose yourself, right? And so soulmates are always designed to leave at a certain point and return you to yourself, because they were just showing you all along that that energy that you recognized was you. And dogs just do it in a way that is like so pure. And yeah, so I hope that helps. Does anyone have any? Oh, and also, I give myself permission to feel my grief. I give myself permission to feel my sadness, and it's okay. I give myself permission to feel my sorrow, and it's okay. And like letting those things move out, you know, and that's partly why we move the lymph, right? And a lot of the sadness is here. That's where we hold a lot of grief, is in the throat. And partly it's being held there because we're not letting things out, but also we're not really truly letting them in, you know. And people will tend to try and avoid attachment because they don't want to be hurt, which is like, with a big loss like that, that can be something that happens where you try to avoid deep attachment. But it's more about letting life fully touch and impact you, fully feeling all of it, because it's so, nowhere else do you get to feel and experience life in the way that you do here. So does anyone else have anything that they'd like to say? Questions, Mr. Matt? Unmute.
Thanks. That's fascinating topic. I have lots of different things I'd love to explore, but I guess I'll just sort of hone it into two main points. And one is around the soulmate. So like when I think of my relationship with my partner, I feel she really is a soulmate. She's my soulmate. Not that it was always smooth sailing, like there was still a lot of kind of conflict and upheaval, and sometimes, you know, clashing, and like maybe this is gonna just self-destruct the relationship, and then it always would come back, and we'd always kind of grow together and go to the next level. And it feels like we're both kind of evolving spiritually, like at a kind of very similar rate, like we're kind of going through the stages together, which is kind of beautiful and amazing. And so then, and also I'll just add as a kind of an aside that she also, the cat seems to also be her soulmate. And sometimes I think that the cat is really her true soulmate. I'm number two, but that's another story. Anyway, I'm wondering if the soulmate relationship can actually, you know, if we're here evolving each other every step of the way, at some point, you say that the soulmate is designed to leave, but could you evolve out of the soul
I can hear you.
and still stay together?
I got go back like 5 seconds of what you said.
Okay. just, did you miss what I said?
I missed what you said, like 5 seconds. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. So we're here evolving each other. And you said that the soulmate is designed to leave at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, like, if we just evolve each other and then the relationship, okay, now don't need that soulmate connection, but let's say now we're both in a, you know, a different perspective, or we're in just in a different place, could it not evolve into just a divine union without this kind of energetic separation or this rub? That's the first question.
Yeah, so divine union is first and foremost only with the self. So the only way that one could actually, quote unquote, be with their twin is if they themselves are completely in divine union with self. So you are with yourself would be there, right? So it's like, and it's not always the case, but like there's that with you, right? So you could be in divine union with yourself, and a soulmate partner could be in divine union with themselves. And that would be what I would call a high level soulmate, someone that's really close in frequency to you, but not the same. However, at some point in the journey, even if it was like 10,000 lifetimes from now, like you're literally different sequences of the universal life. So at some point, you know, it's like you have your own most efficient direct path to source, and you have these soulmates, and they could go all the way, but then like the last couple degrees into that union with God, source, universe, it's going to be different. And so your path is going to have to separate, because it's your divine connection to all that is. And so this is where we get into attachment, where we're attaching at the emotional body, and we want things to stay the same in order to have security. But the future and all of this is going to develop into something really interesting, because the auroras brought frequency, and we have the auroras here. The auroras brought the frequency of divine union into the atmosphere, meaning that the accessibility for you to be connected directly to source and have your own connection is the potential for that is greater than has ever been before. And so the shift relationally of what we're going to see over, you know, the next couple of decades is relationships that are, when you're connecting directly to source, you're and this whole, all the soul family are ways in which you can see different aspects of the self for you to connect with that, so that you can progress along your journey of anchoring your union with all that is here in the physical body. And so whether you do that through a soulmate or karmic relationships, catalyst relationships, you know, twins, whatever, it really doesn't matter. It's all about what you need and what you desire, and there's no right or wrong answer. I really want that to be like the most important piece that is received, because there's literally no preference. You know, people want, you know, they want their soul more than they want their ego, but they're designed to work together. And so it's more about recognition. So all of these pieces, you can begin to recognize who these different characters are in your life, so that you can pull in the resources that they're really giving you, right? So what is you know, your partner offering you? What is she providing you? What lessons or experiences or expansions is she allowing you to receive, right? So you receive those, and then you begin learning those lessons. But just know that when you complete the lessons, it's not that they're going to go away. It's more like you're desire to be around them disappears. It's just gone because you've completed the contracts. We think it's, oh, I've lost my desire. It's actually the contracts between us are complete. And so there's nothing pulling us together. And if you stay in that relationship out of emotional dependency, that's when things get spicy, and a soulmate can turn into a catalyst real quick, because you're both bored of each other and the universe is going to come in and be like, nope, that's not going to happen. And they'll zip out of your reality. So I always experience like a joy of losing a soulmate, you know, and I don't really have any soulmates anymore. Just like soul tribe, and I spend a lot of time alone. But soulmates are beautiful, and really at the end of the day, it's all you. It doesn't even matter. It's at the end of the day, like, you are everyone and everyone is you. And that's like Yeshua vibes, right? It's like, treat your neighbor as yourself because they are yourself. Like, and if you don't even need to like physically see the veil lift like that in order to just act like it. And when you can begin honoring others in that way, like, you're going to be living a beautiful life. And so I think I went on a latte tangent, but I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Just super quick, that one of the other things, because you just said the contract is what is bringing us together and causing that magnetism, but then you were talking about these contractless relationships, and when you were talking about that, I was wondering, well, what's actually bringing those two people together if not the contract?
Choice. And that's
Choice.
the beautiful thing, and this is actually the most triggering part of those people that had the contractless connection, was there was nothing keeping them together and there was nothing bringing them together. And so it was triggering all of the insecurities, but also activating this freedom, you know. And I really feel like we're at this precipice of a radical shift to the type of relationships, and we're going to have more and more different types coming in. And so I'm not the authority on this. I'm just expressing what I see, and always experiment with your own experiences. That's how I learn everything. I just experiment and like look. And when I was in high school, I'm like, why? And I always ask, like, I've just had this natural tendency to ask why someone is in my life. Why is this person in my life? What am I? Why? And you get information. So just be more interactive with your life in that way, and you'll glean so much information that can help you in your integration as a soul. And really, it's about like what you want, and there's no pressure to be any certain way or get any place. The soul doesn't care. Like, if you want to spend the next 1,000 lifetimes doing the same thing, like, do it. I doubt that's what you want, but you can try it.
Have one more thing, Barrett, that was kind of really important. The main question I had when you're talking about soul tribe, and the soul tribe you're saying is like, it sounded to me like you're talking about the mentors or the people who kind of really bring you back. They're powerful people who bring you back to your path. And for me, like, I've always had spiritual teachers and spiritual mentors, and it's very interesting what you said, because I always did think, oh, they're spiritually more evolved than I am. They know the truth. They're connected to the truth. Therefore, I'm going to connect to them. And that's going to be my way to connect to source. And you, Matt Kahn, you've been like putting me back, saying, no, it's your own kind of connection. And it's just different ways. So I'm just trying to kind of discern here the difference between recognizing that somebody else maybe is closer to source, or maybe a bit further along on their journey, and therefore there's still some kind of attraction, there's a learning, and you're getting something vibrationally that's maturing you, but at the same time recognizing that their way is not necessarily my way, or that I'm going to have my own way of doing that, and that it's not kind of gospel what they're saying, it's more like an embodiment, learning from the embodiment, and then finding my own way of doing that within what's right for me. So I was just wondering if you could touch on those points and maybe clarify a bit.
Totally, yeah. You can think of like think of the sun and all the little rays that are coming off of it, and the furthest part of the ray away from the sun is like where a sunflower is growing, right? And then the sunflower is like growing towards the sun, and then just before it touches source, it like blooms, right? And so every little ray is a different flower. If you are a magnolia and you're trying to figure out how to become a sunflower, you're in for a lot of self-torture because you're meant to be a magnolia. And so it is very much about your own internal journey. However, there are architectures that are the same, like regardless. And that is like things like separation and divine union. Like these are qualities and things that are universal. For example, when I went to Big Island last month for my birthday, I kept running into these people in Pahoa who were radically different than me. Like their energetics, like they just had very different paths than me, right? And I was like, and it's like a little spiritual community of hippies and stuff. It's great. And there were some people that I was like not attracted to in any way. And they would have a similar energy as someone over here who I was like very attracted to interacting with because I felt safe, right? And I was trying to figure out, okay, so there's like a generalized belief system that's running here, or like way of seeing things. But then I realized, oh, the people who that is authentically their own design, their own alignment, it feels good. And so I'm like, oh yes, I want to like hang out with you because you're just real. Even if it's radically different from what is right for me, I can feel the alignment within your system, and that feels good to me, versus other people where I'm like, this isn't even you, and you're just like copying, and I don't want to be around that, right? So it's this, we're moving into a time where it's going to be all about your own connection with source, your own embodiment of your essence, who you are, and and the future of relationships, which I was getting to a little bit earlier, I think, was connecting to source first, and then from source relating to everyone around you, versus trying to relate to others and like getting in all these like sticky energetic tangles with people, like trying to like please them, or all the things that everyone is working through all the time, right? It's like we're trying to like grow into individualized beings, but what does that actually mean is like really truly following your own soul, your own alignment to your source, and that's going to look different, and you brought up soulmates and having multiple relationships, and I wrote in my post about this class at the beginning is that polyamory can only happen within soulmate relationships, and you can have multiple partnerships with multiple beings, but only with soulmates, because with with the twin, you're really just in relationship with yourself, whether that's like a twin flame or your twin as in your breath. You're in connection with your own self. And instead of trying to make connections to people in certain ways, it's allowing your presence with your breath to show you how much or how little you want to be around someone. And the more intimately you are connected with yourself, the less and less you're going to want to be around people who don't know themselves. Because it just won't feel good. And it's not out of judgment, it's out of discernment for what you need in your journey. And then it's all about you, because it is all you. And it's recognizing that you are the universe manifested into physical form. But what does that mean on a practical level? It means taking the steps to honor your path and doing what feels right for you. And there's no right or wrong, so you can experiment with things.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I lived in San Francisco. I did all kinds of wild spiritual experiments because that's just the way it is over there. You know, it's the fire element. It's very much like Pahoa. Become whoever you want to be. I highly suggest tapping into San Francisco energy if you want to like bring more of your true self out, because they say when you go to San Francisco, it's your soul saying that you're ready to be your true self, because you can be anything that you want to be, save a Christian or a Republican, but but yeah, so there are these places where these energies are kind of showing what's possible. Did you have another question?
That's really great. I'm complete. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Any other Mr. Oh, perfect. Yeah, and if you guys can raise your hand on the chat, I can see, because I can't see all your faces all at once. But I think Raleigh was next. That's whose hand I saw.
Hi. Hi,
Hey.
y'all. Oh my God. I really feel that my soul is just enjoying myself now. I had a session with a really dear friend, and we went really deep. And I had this belief, subconscious, that I didn't belong or I didn't want to be here. And so that was very intense to feel, and still is tuning into. And then, you know, we really got into, I'm here to celebrate and live my life as I am.
Mm.
And so I had a relationship a few months ago that started in January, and she had hit me up and contacted me, and we started going out and doing dates. And, you know, she was my girlfriend for a while. And then it was really beautiful. Like, we shared a lot. You know, she was a Pisces, I was a Pisces. And I had a sense like this probably isn't gonna last long. And so, like, when the eclipse came, I messaged her, I talked to her, and you know, she was gone. Like, I didn't hear anything from her. So I kind of got ghosted in that way. And it's interesting looking back on my romantic relationships. Like, they don't last very long. It's very quick. I feel like we do years of work in such a short amount of time. So it's probably a soulmate thing, catalyst combination. I'm not sure, but like I feel like we do so much work in a short amount of time that it just completes quicker. So that was kind of interesting moving into that. Like, I just told people like the eclipse kind of took my girlfriend, and that was that. So I was like, I can't really explain it. Like, what happened to her? Like, I don't really know. But I feel like I served her path and she served my path very well, and like we are complete on that. And so, you know, would I have liked closure? Yeah, but you know, I kind of got it internally with what we shared. Um, so yeah, it's interesting. I wanted to bring up that a lot of my friends are getting married right now. So I'm going to a lot of marriages. The last one was like one of the best weekends I've ever had in my life. And it's really interesting, like seeing those souls that are like a complete like match for each other and like, oh, this works. And so yeah, I don't know if I want to get married, like how that plays out, but I'm just feeling like really complete in myself and like what I'm here to bring and how I'm here to serve. And so I find it really beautiful how you described all the souls and everything in that process. So it's really cool to see it in that light. You know? So I'm just over here loving it.
Awesome. So good. Yeah. Well, another piece about like catalyst or karmic connections is that when they're lovers, they tend to be partners. They tend to be people that we connected with sexually first. There's a sexual connection that drives our desire for them. So it's like something that we like see, they're like beautiful, sexy, we want to like connect with them, kind of like energy. But um but it's like that quick flame that kind of like burns out, and so they can be like, you know, few months or whatever. Versus like a soulmate catalyst is designed to like make you just like, for example, the guy that I almost got married to like 12 years ago had this beautiful connection. It was just so wonderful and easy and like just great, right? Everything about it was great. Almost got married. Then comes in all the catalyst contracts, right? And he cheats on me and all these things, right? So that was the activation of the catalyst aspect, but it doesn't work unless the soulmate piece is laid out first. So it's like the setup. They're the ones that really betray you in a sense. And the betrayal is designed to like teach you a lot of lessons in a short period of time and reconnect you with yourself and help you reevaluate. And then catalyst, it's not necessarily that they feel good or bad. It's just like an intense, strong connection. You're meant to, you know, when your nervous system is really activated with someone, they're probably a catalyst of some sort, you know, whether it's like excitement or kind of fear, but like you're into them, like it's probably a like catalytic type energy. Versus like when you meet soulmate, it's just gonna be really easy, period. Like almost like everyone smoked marijuana, like it's just like chill, you know, like just like that,
Yeah.
that kind of a vibe.
So you're just like, oh, you can just melt.
Exactly. And then you meet a twin, and when you meet them, you feel uneasy. It doesn't feel good necessarily, and that's actually your ego preemptively knowing that it's going to fall apart. And so it's like, oh, I don't know if I like this. So anyways, but there's always one body that is super into it at first, and then they pull away, and it creates this dynamic of destruction of both ego structures. Yes. All right. Bye, Matthew. Yes. Well, Kirsten, unless you had anything else to say, brother.
I just want to touch on the breath, that when I spend the mornings with my breath within the sunrise and invoking my own connection to source, like that, it's just kind of beyond words, but it's so peaceful and safe when I'm starting my day off that way. I'm like, this feels really good. And I know you've mentioned like consistency your soul thrives on. So that's been really powerful. Even taking like quick breaks to just be like, and just sink back into that. So that's been huge for me. So yeah.
Totally, especially with so much like societal activation on many different levels. Especially if we're in like cities or whatnot, there's a lot of energies moving around, and just like remembering to connect with source and your own, remember that, even if there's crisis around you or issues around you, to not take on that crisis and to be a place where peace is moving through you out into the world. And yeah, being the space where source can meet the planet through connecting to the sun and your breath. So amazing. Love you, brother. All right. I'm gonna unmute you, my dear.
Hey,
Hey, love.
good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I mean, of all of those soul connections, the breath is the one that is most active for me right now. But I've known for quite a while that my breath stops quite a bit, and that it's very relaxing when it does. And I've sort of begun to wonder if that's not a bad thing, rather than thinking there's something wrong with me with that. And just wondering what your take on that would be. Because you sort of are talking about just always feeling the breath and sort of having continuous breath. Have you had that experience at all, where you stop breathing for a period of time?
Well, when we're stopping breathing, we're probably entering the mind, right? So there's like this can happen in many different ways, but your mind can get you stuck in a particular place in your body. And so when you reach to that spot where you've already previously dissociated, it's like almost like an automatic response, where you get to that portion of your system that you haven't breathed and you immediately dissociate. And as someone with a lot of injuries to my brain and just a lot of experiences, it takes a lot of consistency to get through those moments, because you actually have to access what you dissociated from. It can be pretty uncomfortable. And sometimes it's just a feeling, it's just sensation when you really boil down to it.
Okay. My experience of it is that it's the times when I'm most relaxed and most not in my mind. Is that me just not knowing what's going on?
Well, I mean, I would probably, the next time that it happens, just ask yourself, what is this? What, like, show me what is happening here, and find out for yourself, because it may just be something that you're personally experiencing. And yeah, it's always important for you to connect with yourself, because you have all the answers, on some level.
And that, I guess that's the other thing that I've wondered about, because I fairly recently realized that the places where I have information are when other people ask me questions. Then I can access the information, but I can't really access most information for myself very often. And I don't know whether that's because I'm not asking the right questions. I think it is more just that, yeah, that I'm not necessarily intended to answer, or to answer those kind of questions in that way. I'm not sure. It's like the right brain is like got a lot of information in it, but it can't be accessed unless someone else comes in and asks a question or requests information from me.
Interesting. I mean, there might be something. Yeah, it might just be like there's like maybe an element of like fear of what you might find out, that sort of kind of blanket that can happen sometimes, especially when we've had a lot of dissociative experiences. We're afraid. Trust me, there especially when I was younger, I would like refuse to meditate because I was scared of what would come out, because I knew that there was so much trapped in there. So we can definitely do that to ourselves as a protective mechanism. So I would just like see, you know, a good technique, especially if your coach is someone's like, I don't know. Well, if you did know, what would it be? And just keep digging gently and seeing what opens up. But I would just be curious about what's going on with your breath as it's happening. Or what were you experiencing as that was happening? Like, were you having a vision of something? Or there's so many different layers. But yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you about it later as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have had since birth sleep apnea, and I find myself holding my breath often. Yes. I also just saw this interesting device for sleep apnea recently, which was like it sucks your tongue out, and it's like almost like a little pacifier with like a guard in your teeth. And so that might be an interesting thing to look at. If you're interested, you could ask me and I'll try and find it. But it's tongue positioning it's a big piece in sleep apnea that they're, I guess, discovering. And yeah, the holding of the breath, there's so many aspects of the breath and like softening into the belly that are so important. Like we hold so much in the psoas, a lot of tension, and like death fright conflicts that are in our breath and our psoas. And when we're holding our breath, we're usually like bracing ourselves for something. So yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Or we do a little exercise. Okay. So just begin. It's always good to work with catalysts. So just whether on your phone or on a piece of paper or something, just sort of like jot down a few people that you feel are catalysts in your life. Especially if there's anyone that you feel like like when you think about them, you're like it's not so great. Who are those people that doesn't feel great? Also provide a written practical application for this, because in the end, this is a tool to understand the people that you're interfacing with in your life and how they're helping you. Because the divine matrix is a blameless state. The ego matrix, the ego mind, creates blame, criticism, There can also be catalytic events or experiences. And if you've taken the Anatomy of Awakening with me, then you'll know about, the three centers, gut, heart, and mind. And that ultimately it's about presence, which lives in your gut, your original innocence, receiving the values and virtues that everything is providing you. And can you see with love these manifestations of yourself in other form, even and especially when it hasn't felt good? And when you can have a special spot in your heart for those who hurt you the most, you're really good at playing in your own divine matrix. Because you recognize that it doesn't matter what others have done to you, but only how you have transmuted it into the expansion of your journey. And the reason why that you want to be clear on what each of these soul family members are providing you is so that you don't keep repeating the same stories, especially catalyst relationships. And if you have any charge towards any of these people on this list, it means that you haven't received the values and virtues that they were designed to provide you, because on some level you're in blame, othering, and thus separation consciousness. And the tension in your body is actually the manifestation of separation consciousness. It's where you are allowing there to be separation on any level to all that is. And it produces a really toxic energy in your system. That's holding the space for your soul. So if you're quick to anger, it's one good way to see if there's energy that needs to be completed. Impatience. And also there's no rush in forgiving anyone. Recognizing that you don't have to forgive anyone is the first step of forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't required. It's just what's going to make you feel better. Just anywhere you remember these people. And feel everything lightening up just in recognition. So the super power move is when you're able to recognize, like, oh, instead of someone I don't like, or I mean, not that you have to like them, but instead of someone like, oh, they're just this person, right? You're the energy of like gossip or like talking about other people. It's literally it's like the sound of separation. It's like, and it just doesn't feel good to even listen to at a certain point in your journey. It'll make you sick. But like that's the toxic energy that you want to get out of your system. And the quickest way to do it isn't to like talk it out and move the energy in that way. It's to recognize that they're for you. They're designed for you. And one of the most amazing ways this happened to me was, my dad was very abusive to me as a child. And I was on a rooftop in San Francisco in 2012, and I had a sudden vision when the veils of reality lifted, and I saw all these images of my dad abusing me as a child, but like it was my light inside of his body. My meaning like the light that is all, not like me personally, but just the same energy. And I was like, oh, I abused myself to become who I am today, and there's no faster way that would have happened than for this specific experience. So when you can tap into that quality of meeting your life experiences with your own, with power, right? Instead of like feeling overpowered by them, you can meet them in honoring of what they've provided. It's a level of forgiveness that's beyond what we think of forgiveness. It's just fully taking in, fully allowing yourself to be impacted by life. Let it change you. I have so many catalysts and I keep trying to go into them so I can heal, but it feels unending. Well, a lot of times when we keep attracting catalysts, it's likely because we need to learn boundaries and sharing with people who are the catalysts what is not acceptable. And from your perspective, right? So it's about what your needs are. But especially in the case of like abuse, like your contract is done with them as soon as you like leave the situation or experience. How to get rid of the physical symptoms. Like I feel black tar in the right side of my stomach from stepfather relationship abuser. I sit with emotion, get angry, cry, yet it's still there and heavy. So I learned this from a friend who did a little brain healing technique on me this last week, and it discharged, like, or not discharged, neutralized. There was no discharge. Neutralized the energy. And what you do is you basically like meditate, drop into, as relaxed space as you can, and then find those places in your body where you're feeling those like intense physical symptoms, and you give it a voice and you say like, what do you need to say? Or what do you have to say? And it will be like, I hate you. And so you say, I hate you. And then you say, I hate not you. And you cancel out the whatever it is. And if it's just one word, it's like, if it's like shut up, it's like shut up, not shut up. And I think this was studied by like Stanford University or something. But it literally begins to like oscillate your brain, and the part that's like sort of offline, that's connected to your body, because all of this is like going to the brain. Your brain is like controlling all of these aspects of your physical symptoms, and your psyche is like creating the conflict and tension patterns in the brain. So it's like you're like oscillating the brain, but you're like giving this like an inner voice. And so you just keep going with whatever it has to say. And eventually there will be like a tonal shift in your voice, 11:11 right now, a tonal shift in your voice where you hear the true self. And that's one way to clear the physical symptoms. Another is tapping into the same meditation, dropping in. And this is basically what we're going to do right now for this catalyst. So pick the person who hurt you the most, basically. And just take a few deep, slow inhales and exhales. Just grounding into the earth, connecting into all that is, to source. And you can say something like, it is commanded and requested that I forgive whatever, whoever it is. Thank you, show me. And you watch yourself say whatever you need to say to this other aspect on a soul level. Just giving yourself permission to fully feel all aspects of that situation and experience, and let your soul purge the energy. Transmuting it completely and replacing it with the divine love that you are. You can move on to the next person on your list. We'll just do like 3 of these. And just saying out loud for yourself, it's commanded and requested that I forgive blank. Thank you, show me. Just witness whatever needs to be said, felt, expressed. Feel it moving from the parts of your body where that tension is. And moving on to your third catalyst. It's commanded and requested that I forgive blank. Thank you, show me. And just witness yourself express everything. All the things that you think you shouldn't say. Allowing yourself to fully express the grief, sorrow, sadness, anger. All right, and another thing that you can do for catalysts is show me what values, virtues, what lessons is my soul trying to learn from this being? Is it boundaries? Is it stepping out of codependency? These are all the initiations that these characters, catalysts more than anyone else, are initiations. And every emotion is an initiation. So what initiations are you avoiding? Because catalysts more than likely are going to be initiating you into the emotional aspects that you least prefer. And you can do this in your own exploration. Because if you can master the divine matrix, if you can master the way in which all of these characters are designed in your reality, and the more that you start to recognize, you're like, oh yeah, that's a soulmate, or that's a catalyst. Like, you can be in non-resistance to the way that your life is unfolding, and you can just begin to extract the lessons so you don't have to continue playing out these same patterns. And then it becomes like a video game. Like, this is a playground of different characters that are helping you slow down or speed up. Like I said, twin flame is going to be like the fast pass. Catalysts are going to be right behind that, whether it feels good or not. Soulmates are going to be like Sunday drives through the mountains, you know? It's going to be a beautiful scenic way. And remember that regardless of who you have around you, your breath is your closest partner. Where am I separating from my breath? Where in my day am I separating from my breath? Where am I creating crisis instead of recognizing the value of what that moment is providing? Trust me, if you're not breathing, your body's going to feel like you're in crisis. And if you are in a sort of panic, you can actually take yourself out of a panic attack by breathing slowly enough. It takes a lot of control, but when you just inhale as slowly as you can and think the word I, exhaling very, 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 very slowly the word am, you can anchor yourself back into true reality, into the I am. Everything around you in this reality is a tool designed to show you yourself, and none of it is here to hurt you. Nothing is here to hurt or harm you, but to hone you. And when you fully receive the value and the virtue of whatever it is, it no longer has any reason to exist. Because it has no longer any reason to teach you anything. You've learned it. That's why soulmates disappear. That's why catalysts disappear. I am not here to punish, I am here to purify. Yes, I love that. That's the masculine coming in strong, brother. And let's just write a list of a few soulmates. People, just a few people where you feel that comfortability, familiarity, like you've known them for lifetimes. By the way, your first karmic relationship, your first catalyst, your parents. They can also be soulmate catalysts. But if you had a parent with particular edge against, definitely catalyst. And just honor these soulmates. What have they provided you? And this one you also have to get in a little bit deeper, because the lessons may not be as clear cut. They may not be as clear cut because they're not as activating as a catalyst. Catalyst is clear. Like, you know what happened. They cheated on you. They bullied you. Whatever it is. They raped you, right? One of my catalysts. when you can get to the energy of thank you for raping me, you're going to start burning through that egoic patterning so quickly, because you are recognizing the power of what you are and how your divine matrix is manifested. Why would you're the only one in existence, why would you manifest something into your reality? And this can go really weird real quick when people don't understand the actual architecture of reality. And then they go into victim blaming. You can't blame the victim. And that's not what you're doing. It's actually fully meeting the experience that you have had and no longer letting it overpower you. Because when you're too willing to learn and grow, like, so what? And when you're in a lifetime, if you're in a lifetime like mine, where I call it, your select all lifetime, you've chosen all the most ridiculous fast pass experiences so that you can grow rapidly, because that's what your soul wants to experience. It wants to experience in physical form the greatest amount of material that's available and expand the soul as quickly as possible. And you're the only one that could go through what you've gone through because you've gone through it. But are you truly letting yourself go through it? Because if there's tension in your body, there's stuff you're still holding on to. It's not even relevant to your experience now. It's relevant because you haven't completed it. But it's not actually relevant to this moment. And sometimes you need to feel all the things that are there, and other times you just need to recognize it's not happening anymore. I am not currently being raped. I am not currently houseless. I am not currently poor. I am not currently being abused. I am not currently being cheated on. I am not currently in emotionally unavailable relationships. So just begin recognizing the lessons and experiences that you've already, sometimes, especially because life is moving so quickly right now, it's so easy to compartmentalize everything. And even if you're going through how do you say, a fuck ton of shit right now, like, you're still here. Recognize that you are still here. Recognize the part of you that is still alive and here. There is a wellness that is present even amongst everything else. And that's the point of the true twin, or the hidden twin, the breath. The breath is always well. And that's why when you're feeling tension and you don't breathe into it, you're feeling unwell, because you're not allowing the wellness of the breath to be distributed through that aspect of the body. So breathe into the pain and distribute the wellness that you are. And you're going to have to feel the tension. The tension will increase just before it releases. That's always the way it works. It's like a loaded spring. Just taking a few deep, slow inhales and exhales, fully filling your belly, releasing completely. Someone asked, I always feel my repressed emotions in my solar plexus. Is this normal? So again, this is another sign of the transmutation from mental, emotional body into the higher centers, where you're relating through your heart. So your heart is also a source point. And so when you're interacting and interfacing with others around you, in your own divine matrix through the heart, there isn't an attachment, and it doesn't actually feel emotional. So those are all, and this goes into the anatomy of initiations, which will be the next 2 weekends. All those emotions are threshold guardians, and your consciousness is ready to expand into the next level, but the thresholds that you haven't crossed are creating that tension, and they'll get louder and louder until you face them, so that you can sit. And it's not malicious, right? They're not trying to prevent you from doing anything. It's actually like they're safeguarding your consciousness to be completely cleared of these frequencies, so that when you enter your new consciousness, you'll have new perspectives, right? So there's all these, every emotion is initiation. If you can understand that, you can move so quickly through your journey, because it's not personal. Emotions are not personal. Emotions are what you're experiencing. Emotions are ego. And that's not wrong, right? The ego isn't wrong. Emotions are not wrong. It's just emotions and thoughts only exist within that layer of consciousness. And when you move beyond them, that's where you have like telepathy, and you still have emotional experiences, but they're not emotional. It's like you are the joy, you are the sadness. So there's not like a you having an emotion, like you are the thing. It's like the best way that I can describe it. It's your emotions are there because they haven't been integrated back into yourself, if that's clear. So it's like emotions that get stuck in the body are stuck there because you haven't welcomed them fully back into yourself yet. And so they feel separate, and therefore something that is stuck. Separation, stuckness, stagnancy, all the same thing. So, and the emotions they're wrapped up in stories, right? So there's all sorts of stories that are connected into each emotion, which is that's why they're the mental body. So, and a good, I give myself permission to feel I would say feel my fear, because there's probably, if they're repressed, there's some level of fear around actually feeling it, because it can feel overwhelming to know that you have a lot to feel that you haven't felt. But that's part of the initiation. If you recognize that it's not about you, the emotions are not about you. And once you've depersonalized it, then you can be intimate with it. This isn't about me, it's just mine to feel. It's a completion. All right, does anyone have any questions before we close out?
I have one, Barrett, if it's okay. How do you characterize, what do you think is the descriptor for a long-term like marriage or, you know, partnership that stays healthy and vibrant? I mean, yeah, how would you name that?
Oh, it's still a soulmate. Yeah, the like soulmates that, you know, stay happy and vibrant. Like, the thing about soulmates is they tend towards stagnancy. Like, they don't necessarily, I mean, and again, it's not wrong. What I mean is, like, are you traveling at like a supersonic plane level, or are you traveling by boat, right? We're all going to the same place. How are you getting there, right? And so the different experiences that you have with these different types of connections and relationships are just the vehicle in which you're taking, and they all have various things to teach you, right? Like, you're not going to go to a catalyst relationship to talk about your feelings. I mean, you might try, but it's going to be disastrous, right? You're going to go to a soulmate. You're going to go to someone who understands you, right? You're going to go to someone who will make you feel comfortable. They're like, a soulmate is the one you're gonna cuddle with, you know, like soulmate best friend. Yeah, cuddle partner, like guaranteed. So yeah, I mean, it's so important to recognize that none of these are more favorable. It's just recognizing the qualities in which they're producing in your experience. The thing is that with soulmates is that there'll be a lot of like giving and getting and taking, and like, you do this for me, I'll do that for you, and it's relating this way. Now, soulmates can relate to source and then to each other from there, and you won't have that sticky, you know, connection. But when there's arguments and stuff, that's actually like the thing showing you what you're working on with that person. So yeah, I hope that was clear. Does everyone get how to work with the actual soul family and how to like pick up what's required from each person? Like, if you're going in your list and you're showing, you know, you're like, okay, these are all the people who catalyzed me in uncomfortable ways, whether or quick ways, positive or negative, however you see it. But if you can pull away the idea of positive or negative, will be really helpful, because then you can just be objective and acknowledge that they helped you move forward in a really quick way. And what were the lessons? And if there's any repeating patterns in your life, repeating relationship patterns, those are lessons that you haven't extracted and integrated yet. So those are going to be the most, you know, important. Like, do people always leave you? Why would people leave you? Does it show you that you're unworthy, unlovable, That's the core lesson that you need to learn. The symptom is the experience of someone abandoning you. And so we can think of like, oh my God, I'm abandoned. I'm not loved. Like, I can't believe they abandoned me. And they're the problem. Separation consciousness. Divine Matrix says, oh, I'm being abandoned, says my mind. Why would I want to be abandoned? What is that triggering for me to fully face and resolve so that I can be whole within myself? Now we're playing a way different game. No one has ever hurt you. They've only hurt the aspects of your egoic mind and how it's attached into your energetic structure. And when you clear that, then it really doesn't matter what happened to you in the past. Because it's actually advantageous, everything that happened. Everything that has ever happened to you was an advantage that you wanted for yourself. So why is that? These are the questions that you want to like really learn. And the deeper that you go on your own, you must assume that you wanted it on some level, that you designed it, even if it's not the conscious, you didn't create it, like, Barrett didn't create, but it's like when I came into this body, designing everything in order to ensure the fastest possible journey. So there's the extraction of all the things, and then there's also the resting in your soul. Because there's recognizing that there's nowhere to get. You are already your soul. And the parts that feel off and uncomfortable are just the egoic aspects, which are being detangled by the soul family around you. And they're helping you interact with different emotions that feel uncomfortable. Or like, I remember I went out dancing and this guy grabbed me on the dance floor, and it was like a moment. It was the exact moment that I was having a completion of a catalytic cycle. And I went off with like it was such a deep voice that came through me, was like, you are not allowed to just touch me like that. And I've never had something like that happen ever again, because I completed the energy. I spoke up for myself. So anything that is continuing to happen in your reality is a result of a frequency that you haven't completed. I let myself wallow for a few days this last week in just heavy energy in my gut, feeling nauseous and all of this stuff. And I'm like, why do I always forget this? So I can remember. And I sat and I basically did a soul integration session for myself, clearing all these frequencies in my body. And I'm like, wow, I no longer have a headache. I'm no longer nauseous. I no longer have this. I no longer have that. Because it's the frequencies that want to be met, to be completed, so that you can move on with your journey. And the biggest things that are happening collectively right now are in the solar plexus, because they're actually connected into the pancreas, which are frequencies of wanting the sweetness of life, of wanting to be cuddled and cared for, and feeling that warmth of connection with life around you. And there's been a lot of cold things that have happened in the world. And so the cold, sweet, like there's this oscillation between the two. And it's bringing up all of our emotional attachments to wanting to feel good. Well, you can't actually feel good if you're not willing to feel it all. And when you are capable of feeling it all, then you'll feel good no matter what you're feeling. Because everything is meant to move through you. So where are you holding stagnancy in your body? Those are tension patterns. Those are lessons from soul family that you haven't learned. Scan your body. And, you know, for a lot of us, well, anyone on this, anyone that's ever going to see this is a very sensitive soul. You are very aware of reality in a way that most people are not. And that means that you, because of the society and families and all that stuff that we grew up in, we probably have a lot of backlogged information feeling in our bodies that are stuck because we want to be loving, right? And this is where we are transmuting from the emotional body layers into the higher heart center. Because life isn't about being loving in the way that you think it is. It's being honest and authentic and aligned with yourself. And if being nice to someone else is what you think is good and needs to happen, you're creating egoic patterns in your body that are making you sick. You can be nice to people, be kind. I'm not saying be mean, but I'm saying you don't have to like anyone. You don't have to like anything that anyone is doing. You don't have to agree with anyone. You just have to be at peace within yourself, because if you're not at peace in yourself with the interactions with the others around you, those are karmic catalytic experiences, contracts that you have with the beings around you that are meant to be resolved. And until you resolve it, you're going to be living in a type of hell. So choose to resolve it so that you don't have to be stuck in that sensation, because it's not necessary. But it's as necessary as long as you agree that it is, because you're not ready to move through the initiation. Again, the anatomy of initiations, next 2 weeks is going to dive deep into that. Why do I always forget this so I can remember potent truth? Yeah, exactly. And when it doesn't matter when you forget, like people judge themselves on whether they know things or don't know things. And it doesn't even matter if you know anything. Like if I always thought this was like a silly idea of like, because I grew up in a missionary family, of like, there are people on the planet who have never even, like, they don't even know the internet exists because they're like on these like remote islands that have never been contacted or whatever, right? So you're telling me someone has to know and believe in Jesus Christ in order to go to heaven, but they've never connected to any idea or story of this? Like, it just that didn't make sense to me. But the same thing goes for any kind of like spiritual idea or anything. It's unnecessary. You already are the thing. As long as you're following what is true and good for you, you're in your own alignment. And as we move into especially 2027 and beyond, like, it's gonna be your own individuated truth. And time, I'm gonna do a whole little class on this because it's super exciting. But when time moved from electricity to magnetism, and then eventually we moved to electromagnetism, part of that shift was that we're no longer interfacing based on a particular truth. We're interacting based on our own. So it's like your own internal alignment is what's most important. It's not going to be like, how well are you following the thing? That's not relevant anymore. Your individuation and connection to source is what's going to make you feel the most aligned. And if you're following something that isn't, doesn't feel like it's working out for you, it probably isn't you, it's the thing. And that's actually just a general rule of living your life. One of my main assumptions throughout my journey is like, I'm correct. The things outside of me are making me not feel good because they're not resonating with what I know to be true. And that was based on me going to church, and I'm like, these ideas don't make me feel good about myself, right? Like, I think I'm right. I think this is interesting. So it's like that connection to yourself. And what's the scariest thing? What if you're wrong, right? You just find out later, right? Maybe 20 years from now, you like find out, oh, like that's right for me, but it's right for you then, not right now. So just keep following what feels right for you now, and you'll be in your most efficient path. Whatever is happening is your most efficient path. Your catalyst's most efficient path. Don't hate them, love them. They are you, activating you into new levels of consciousness. Receive the initiations and move on. No need to hold on to things, right? The interesting thing about my journey is like so much of it was blackouts. Like from 0 to 23, on some level, I was like blacked out on a daily basis. The last 8 of those years was like due to alcohol. So there's a lot of things that I don't have access to because of that, right? So it's like things, like I could avoid those things, but it's almost like I can't avoid what I don't know what happened, right? So it's like life is giving me this opportunity to reverse engineer things as they're coming out. And that's how I discovered how, like, oh, when I come in, things are being pushed out. So I knew that it wasn't an incoming experience, right? But that's how it works, period. Your soul is coming into the body and things are coming out. So when you're in your dark night, when you're in the worst part of your experience, especially on an egoic level, that's when the most amount of your soul is coming in. When catalysts are like burning you alive, your soul is like being shoved into your body. And your soulmates are meant to like stabilize your soul in the body, make you feel comfortable in the body. All right, well, if there's anything else, let me know. We're pushing on 3 hours. I tried to stay at 2, it never works. Anyone want to say anything before we close out? The toroidal fields within the planet. Yeah, well, the planet is a soul as well, right? The planet has its own consciousness. So it is creating its own toroidal field. Better than 5 hours, yeah, right? So, and we have our own relationship with the planet as well, right? So how are you experiencing the earth? This is actually really interesting. Like, how are you experiencing the earth? Is it something that's falling apart? Is it something in crisis? Or is it something in renewal, in regeneration, in organic intelligence? Because you can find the evidence for whatever you're looking for. And if you really tap into the organic fields, the earth isn't in crisis. I talked about this somewhere, I forgot, but so in conflict resolution, inflammation is the final stage of resolution. This is going into like German New Medicine. But inflammation is the final stage of conflict resolution. But what ends up happening is when we have inflammation, we look at that and we're like, oh my God, it's a problem, like I'm in pain or whatever it is, right? So we create a new conflict that then must be resolved, which will result in more inflammation as it resolves. And then we can create a new conflict about that inflammation. And so it's like just this continual thing. So when you're, you know, healing the body, it's really important to pull back from conflict around anything, like trusting that this is like the body, this is what's meant to be happening in the body right now. This is the conflict releasing, completing, right? But you know, water has memory. So water has memory of conflict and resolution. I was getting all these downloads about water releasing conflict layers and that the water was going to become inflamed. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, right? And I don't watch the news or anything like that. And then I keep hearing from friends of mine, they're like, oh my God, do you know that the Atlantic Ocean is like way hotter than it's ever been? And I was like, oh yeah, the water's inflamed. It's releasing like conflict layers. It's completing. So I can add to the field of the earth of crisis, conflict, by being worried about the warmth or the inflammation of the water, or I can recognize the gift of what this is providing. It's the completion of conflict at the water's memory level. So, and then we had we had pretty wild flooding, you know, the last couple of weeks here in the islands. So there's just a lot around conflict resolution and the memory that's held in water being released, because the frequencies that we're at right now, the similar match of that in reality are where we also transmuted into another level of consciousness. And so the transmutation into another level of consciousness is always a little catalytic. It's always a lot of interesting things happening. And that's why you can pull back from being in conflict about what's happening and just trust the process internally, externally. You're going to be okay. And you're not going to create the patterns of tension in your body that you have to later resolve. So even as the patterns of tension in your body are coming out, don't be in tension about that. Just relax, just relax. And that can be much easier said than done sometimes. So don't pressure yourself as well. You know, sometimes you have to be in the tension, right? It's teaching you something until it isn't. Yes, there's also it feels more concrete than other times, at least for me. Yeah, I'm really as my work is evolving right now, because there's also a shift in consciousness right now that if people that you're learning from aren't teaching you how to apply it and do it yourself and also evolve it on your own through your own consciousness, like it's not going to work. Like we're meant here to share. Like all those flowers I talked about earlier, like all the different rays of the sun with the different flowers, we each have our own essence. We each have our own gifts, talents, and abilities. And so we, you know, the future is like everyone's subscribing. There's not going to be a centralized form of information. It's going to be people subscribing to different people that they feel connected to at that time and learning and gleaning from. And when you no longer need their information, or you know, it's just whatever, then you move on, right? So it's not like someone has the right answer. It's who is cultivating value that I want to extract for myself to take along my journey. And so it's like, oh, here you go. Now you have like a framework of understanding like how your divine matrix is manifested, so you can notice the lessons without blame. Very, very important. Because if you're in blame, you're in the egoic matrix, or what people call the matrix. The matrix doesn't actually exist. It's only your mind. You are the matrix, but you want to be the divine matrix and not in the egoic overlay of that matrix. And so when you can pull back from the blame and just experience like, oh, what did I want to grow? How did I want to grow from this experience? And start extracting those experiences, like your life is going to grow so quickly and beautifully without blame, without suffering. You're still going to have experiences that other people, like the funny thing is when you really start anchoring this, other people will suffer more about your journey than you are inside your own. Because they're like, oh my God, you know, like when I share my rape story, people are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, it was literally the best thing that ever happened to me, because I learned more compassion, forgiveness, and love than any other experience. And you have been everything. And I've said this so many times if you've taken other classes with me, but there is no person who has done more for the light than Hitler. Because we are still talking about him and doing the opposite because of it. Catalyst, collective catalyst. Prime example. Trump, collective catalyst. It's actually the same soul lineage as Hitler. Looks like a great improvement from the last version, I can tell you that much. Even though it's not a favorable character, obviously, on many levels. But it takes the darkest soul, the brightest soul energy to show up and manifest as the darkest character. The darkest characters in reality are some of the brightest souls. Because every soul will remember itself as source eventually. And the only souls that can wake up out of that level of conditioning are the brightest lights. So remove your mind's understanding of what good or bad is and understand the play on multiple levels beyond what you think is happening. Why is this really happening? And when you've mastered this, you can be in real time understanding what's happening in every single moment, understanding what's happening in every moment, because you're directly connected to source, and you're understanding that, oh my God, that person is in the moment of me listening to someone gossip. It's literally life asking me to say something that, like, this doesn't feel good to me. It's asking me to speak up for what feels good to me, because I'm the only one experiencing my reality. So why am I listening to something that I don't have to listen to? Because I'm not giving either of us an opportunity to grow by staying silent. So this is the recognition in real time. And when it's like that, it's so good. And then when you start taking the actions that you know on a soul level you're meant to take in that moment, and you're just in this fluid flow of like soul expansion, you begin to realize that, like, viscerally, that the way other people perceive you doesn't matter, because it's just for your own journey. How they respond is just how their ego is dissolving because you've decided to step into your soul. And it becomes easier and easier to just make your soul choices. Someone, it hasn't happened in a long time, but someone was like, oh, like, I want to be friends with you. And I was like, I don't want to be friends with this person, And like, normally, like, you soulmates, you're going to become friends with that person. Like, they're also a little bit of a catalyst, but like, you're going to be like, yeah, I want to hang out. Like, oh no. So I didn't want to hang out with this, but I didn't want to be friends with this person, right? But I'm also an extremely loving being. Like, I don't, it's just not a fit for me, right? So, and I just told them, like, well, thank you so much for, wanting to be friends with me. And you deserve people that can be 100% present with you and be in connection with you. And right now, that's just not me. And they couldn't be upset because I was so authentic. They were just like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. Like, what do you even say to that? I mean, so your soul power is just you taking every step forward. Without resistance. It might feel uncomfortable, but without resistance. It's just, and there's no rush to make the choices that you need to take. But just know the choices that need to be made. And understanding your soul family is the exact way to do that most efficiently. I love you. Is there a reason for not having a lot of catalysts at times in our lives? Yeah. Honestly, like, if we're not having catalysts, everything is designed by the soul. So if whatever is happening is the most efficient path for you right now. If you need, for example, when I was like really going through it, I didn't have any catalysts. I was just, it's almost like a slowing down, right? So these are different. It's how pedal to the metal are you, right? So if you don't have catalysts, your soul is like, oh, okay, like, take your foot off the gas a little bit, and slow things down. And that could be because your physical body can't handle the activations that are coming through if you were to have a catalyst, or it would disrupt your path or take you in a direction. Like, sometimes we need to go the slow route because we're really gleaning the lessons from something, like, really deeply. And so we need to go like really slowly in order to extract the most out of that. Yes, there will be a replay. Just saw a quote today that every drug addict who gets sober lights up a room. That's my job description. The lightning. Yes, good. Yeah, and that's another interesting thing, is that soulmates are the ones who can help you break an addiction. Catalytic relationships are probably going to put you into one, because you're trying to like cope with the amount of activation. All right. Well, that was beautiful, and I love you guys so much. I'll send the replay along with the document. I'll probably send it as a link because I feel like I'm going to update it. So maybe like a week from now, check the link again for any updates. All right, I love you guys. Aloha. Have a beautiful rest of your Saturday.